Speaking at the launch of the Aldersgate Group's Beyond Carbon report, Dr Paul Ekins describes how businesses can save cash for little or no upfront investment by embracing resource efficiency.
Most of the members of the Aldersgate Group are from business, and I guess quite a lot of you will also be business people, very practical people. I'm an academic. I hope not wholly impractical, but I hope that while I will repeat some of the things that have been said, I'll say some of them too from a slightly different perspective, and I have a few brief slides to illustrate what I'm saying. The benefits of this resource productivity, which is what this is about, this report, are basically four. Gev talked about the savings to business. I suspect from figures that I'm going to give you in the next slide that 6.4 billion might be an underestimate of savings to businesses that can be made from low or no cost measures, as the report says. But in addition, it can be future looking because it can stimulate innovation, new technology, economic activity and exports. There's a lot of evidence that countries that have sought to drive resource productivity are now benefiting from that effect. Increased resource security, this was something that John Harmon spoke about, meaning as well reduced vulnerability. The report looks at food, water, energy and rare materials, or at least it looks at three of those, and of course I spend a lot of my time in energy, which is just as relevant. And of course one of the purposes of resource productivity is to get environmental improvement, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, waste to landfill and extraction of virgin materials. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time, you won't be able to read these numbers, but if you're interested in them I can give you a website for them. One of my more practical tasks is as chairman of the National Industrial Symbiosis Programme, which goes by the acronym of NISP. And this body has had about 28 million pounds of public funds, mainly from DEFRA, and I'm very pleased to acknowledge that, in order to pursue the resource efficiency agenda. And over that time, it has achieved really quite remarkable results that give real empirical validity to this 6.4 billion plus. It saved a lot of the resources that it was supposed to save, and the numbers are there: 7 million tonnes of landfill, 6 million tonnes of carbon dioxide reduction, 9.7 million tonnes of virgin material, etc. In addition, it has achieved extra sales for businesses of 176 million and has saved costs from businesses of 156 million. If you then do a little bit of arithmetic, working that out on a conservative basis over 5 years, you come to the fact that this public investment in resource efficiency has saved these resources at really derisorily low sums of money. 31 pence to divert a tonne from landfill, 36 pence to save a tonne of carbon dioxide, 73 pence to save a tonne of virgin materials. I didn't believe these numbers when I first saw them, so we've had a number of verifiers, auditors, people from Manchester Economics crawling all over them in order to ensure that they are soundly based, and they are. In addition, that 28 million pounds of public investment has generated 89 million pounds for the Treasury through these cost reductions, profit increases and increased sales, which means that the Treasury spends 31 pence in order to get a pound back. That seems a pretty good public investment in resource efficiency. Thanks. How does this come about? Well, one of NISP's messages is that the price increases of resources and landfill that we have seen over recent years has been very helpful. Jack and I have a long ongoing discussion on the subjects of price and otherwise. I happen to believe that prices are important. At this meeting that Peter chaired the other day of the Associate Parliamentary Sustainable Resources and Waste Group, it was clear that under the present government, landfill tax is going to reach £72 a tonne in 2013. The Shadow Secretary of State from the Conservative Party was saying his party was committed to keep it there. At £72 a tonne, landfill will be a problem of the past by 2018. Very little doubt in my mind of that, because it simply won't make sense to put stuff in holes in the ground when there are alternatives I'm looking to people like Gev actually to prove me right on that sort of prediction. The carbon price will need to move to a similar kind of level if we are to drive carbon out of the economy, as we have plans to do. And in order to get those prices, we can employ a process called green fiscal reform, which is the systematic increase in the prices of resource use and pollution and the reduction of taxes elsewhere. I've got a few copies of the final report of the Green Fiscal Commission, which Peter Ainsworth mentioned, for any of you who may want to look at that in a little more detail. Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry, can we just go back very quickly, because just a very quick point, and I must absolutely agree with John Harmon here, that prices are not the whole answer. There is an additional need for complementary regulation and for information, and indeed public procurement, as Jack Frost said, because sometimes pricing is too difficult. What is the accurate price of biodiversity? We haven't a clue. Ecosystem functions, environmental services, many of these are beyond the wit of the cleverest environmental economists to calculate. So we need things like the Water Framework Directive, we need planning, we need land use regulations, we need to think about biodiversity in its own terms. And sometimes prices don't work because of information failure. People don't always pay attention to resources. That's not in the culture. And one of the interesting things about NISP is that you would think that if businesses could save these resources at very little cost, that they would do it without NISP. Well, the fact of the matter is that they don't. And that the kind of model that DEFRA pioneered with its business resource efficiency and waste program was that you get the businesses to pay through the landfill tax. You recycle a little bit of the money back into resource efficiency programs, and of course NISP is not the only one. RAP, also a very important resource efficiency program. And both businesses and government are then better off as a result. That's a very, very important practical example of public policy working as it is intended to work. And now on to my final slide, these final thoughts, which you've heard all already, but I'll just very quickly go through them in what seemed to me to be a logical order. We've got to take the physical basis of the economy as seriously as we take its monetary basis. That means having physical accounts that are as good as the national monetary accounts. If you think of the number of statisticians who are employed to measure everything monetary that moves in the economy, and then you think of the comparatively derisory effort that has gone into mapping the resource flows through the economy in precisely the way that Gev was talking about, you can see how far we've still got to go in that direction. Then I think we need to use prices to drive resource productivity, to reduce waste and the loss of potentially valuable materials. We've got to use information to increase the efficiency of price signals, and we've got to use regulation to secure environmental services and ecosystem functions, and to set the framework within which the market, which after all is a humanly created institution, has to be subject to democratic processes in order to get defined environmental outcomes when regulation is more effective than price signals, and it can be. And I'd like to endorse what Jack was saying about the importance of procurement, public procurement, in creating and stimulating resource-efficient markets. The UK is not quite at base camp on all this stuff. We've got a low-carbon industrial strategy, we've got a carbon trust technology strategy board, I've mentioned RAP, NISP. We've made a start, but we are well behind some other European countries. I've mentioned Germany in particular, Sweden, which already has a carbon tax of €100 per tonne of carbon dioxide and is making enormous progress in moving towards its version of a low carbon economy. So we've got some way to go, but the prize is very great.